Welcome to another installment of our online Bible study, this time taking a look at the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians chapter 5. And so we've been working our way a little bit here and there through some of the things that are mentioned in there. We might not cover each one, but we'll just keep going a little bit longer and cover some of the big ones. And some of those may be self-explanatory, and some of them we need to make connections to see what it really means. Today is one I think we can make an interesting connection. Today, as we move through the fruit of the Spirit, the different ways of describing the way that we should be and what we should be doing, is one that seems kind of simple, but it's really not. There's a lot more involved to this one. So I want to kind of reread the list of the fruit of the Spirit, chapter 5 of Galatians, verse 22 and 23, and then we'll take off for the day on another one of the ones that we're focusing on. So let's look at it today together. Galatians 5:22 says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires." And that's a key to the one that we're talking about today. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. So which one of those is it that is kind of contrary to our own passion and desire for ourselves? So, but basically, if anything, the contrast of the fall with Adam and Eve is that human beings tend to be selfish. If anything, in contrast to our selfishness and who we are and us wanting for ourselves, whatever we want is a God who gave up. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. So God sacrificed, Jesus sacrificed for the sake of others. And that's contrast to ourselves, who are fairly selfish beings. And so what I want us to do today is look at this idea of kindness. Kindness, again, this is not an emotion. This is something that we describe the word kindness most often with the word acts of kindness. In other words, if you say that person is kind, you should be able to point to the things that they do which are kind, that showcase their kindness. And I guess the way of looking at that is first to look at the word love. Love in the human language, in the English language, the way that we use it most often today is as a feeling. I love somebody. I just love that. And it's a way of saying that we feel a certain way about something. Well, that's fine. God said that love was connected to action. And so love in the way that the Bible talks about is an entirely different concept. There are different concepts in the Bible of love, but the agape love is a self-centered, selfless love. And the only way that you know somebody is selfless towards you if they do acts of selflessness. And so we would look at it this way: but God so loved us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's how God shows his love, in that before we could offer him anything, he gave, he sacrificed, he became what we needed. And so really what we see is how do we know how to love others? Because God showed us his love, and that's the description of how we should love others. So this idea of kindness, why would kindness be in there in terms of the fruit of the Spirit? Aren't everybody, not just Christians who are full of the fruit of the Spirit, aren't they able to be kind? Well, in some ways, a lot of these are things that good people, one of them is goodness, good people try to attain. But here I would say the difference even between kindness and being nice to somebody. A lot of times we're nice towards other people because we want something in return. Have you ever done something for somebody that was nice because you wanted to be seen as a nice person? A lot of times, let's give an example. Maybe we're sitting on a subway cart and we've got a chair and an older gentleman or older lady comes in and they don't have a place to sit. We might get up and offer them our seat. Now, there's two ways of doing that. One is because we want to give them something nice and whatever. We don't want anything in return. But a lot of people give up that seat because they want to be seen as the kind of person who would do that. And so it's an ulterior motive. Here, kindness is described, I think, as doing something selfless for somebody without wanting to get something in return. In so doing, it is a sermon, each act of kindness a sermon, a mini sermon on the grace of God and the love of God. And so we're talking about acts of kindness being an expression of Jesus' love in a way to bring comfort to other people. So kindness is somebody who has something who gives it away for the sake of others who don't, perhaps. And so what we see is that Jesus had the potential to take away our sin on the cross, and he did it for us, okay? And that was for us. And so how do we see kindness in that way? Again, one of those things is that when Jesus and when Paul and when others call people to kindness, it's kind of radically different than the world around us. The world around us might do something nice, but wanting something else in return, to be seen as somebody who would do something nice, to have a reputation among the community for that. But really, a lot of people won't even do that. We're such selfish beings, I think. And what I think Paul is saying by saying that kindness is really a fruit of the Spirit is kindness in our hearts towards other people. Indicates that we're no longer thinking about only ourselves. Enough so that we're willing to see somebody else's situation, feel pity for them, do something for them. A random act of kindness, it doesn't have to be so random, could be an intentional act of kindness. And in so doing, we're saying to them, we see you, we see your situation, and we want to help. Jesus Christ, when he walked around this earth, encountered people in need every day. We read it all the time in the Gospels. He was walking along and there was a certain person in this situation. And what we see Jesus doing is responding to them. He saw them. He felt something for them. But he didn't stop there. He wanted to fix that situation for them. He wanted to alleviate suffering. He wanted to free the captives. And those aren't people necessarily in jail for their own sins, but people under oppression for things that they hadn't done. People who were in debtor's prison, for example. He talks a lot about that. And so Jesus walked around seeing people. What would that be? And if we walk around this earth and we don't see people, what is it exactly that we're doing? I have the capacity within myself to walk into a store, walk around for an hour, walk out, and have only thought about what I need. The whole reason I'm in the store is to buy the things that I need. And so I'm thinking about, do I need this? Do I not need that? And I go through the store and I look in each aisle. Okay, do I need this? Do I need that? Do I want this? Do I want that? It's all about me. Then we get to the cash register and somebody is talking about putting some things back because they can't afford it. Do I see that? And what does that mean? What are they putting back? Do I notice the situation? I'm not talking about being nosy necessarily. But would they accuse Jesus of being nosy when he walks up and there's a person who needs healing? Was Jesus being nosy when the person who was crippled was lowered down by their friends? Many times the people that Jesus met wanted to be seen. They wanted to be heard. They wanted somebody in this earth to say, hey, listen, I see your dilemma and I want to help. In many ways, what Jesus was prophesied to do, setting the captives free, those kinds of things, lifting people out of oppression. This whole passage is about, for freedom Christ has set us free, stand therefore and don't submit again to the yoke of slavery. It's talking about sin. The whole gospel is about setting people free. And so do we see people who are beyond their own means and are willing to help? Well, one thing about that is I think we have to see ourselves as at one point in life being beyond our own needs. The whole idea of salvation is Jesus saw us when we couldn't help ourselves. Okay, but God showed his love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were still sinners, we were still held captive. And what Jesus did by dying for us was paid that price for us that we couldn't pay, okay? So if we see ourselves in a store and somebody, let's say it's a single mom who has kids, and she's putting back not necessarily the junk food and things that they wouldn't need, but things that they could have used that week for breakfast, are we willing to look around at others and just not see ourselves? It really is the ability to see other people and their needs. and other people in their situations a huge step away from our own selfishness. Selflessness and selfishness, it's hard for those to exist at the same time. So if we walk around saying, God has been good to me, and He's given me so much, and then we look at what we have left and we say, God, maybe there's an opportunity for me to share. Okay, then when this opportunity comes up and we see somebody who needs sharing, maybe we just say, you know what, you were going to put these 3 items back. Hey, cashier, add those to mine. Add those to mine. And then what we say is, ma'am, if you'll just give me a minute to process all this other stuff, these items that you were going to put back, you could put back in your cart and walk out. What we're essentially saying is you could have these things that you didn't pay for, that you couldn't pay for. How is that not an expression? How is that not a message? How is that not a sermon, a testimony of the grace of God in our lives, who, when we couldn't afford it, paid for our own sins? And so what we're saying here, when the Bible says that kindness is a fruit of the Spirit, it's not saying be nice to people. That's not what it's saying. It's saying in the ways in which God has given you an abundance, if you turn that abundance into a tool for God to use you and God to use that abundance to showcase His own grace and His own love and His own selflessness and His own agape love, that for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever would believe in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. If our gift to them teaches them about the gift of Jesus Christ for them, then what we're talking about here is all of the first 2 commandments wrapped up into one. For example, they asked Jesus, what should we do? What's the most important commandment? So, well, the first one's love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. That's worshiping God and loving Him with everything we have. Having done that, we love Him with everything we have. It says what? Love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, well, that love is expressed in acts of kindness. That love is expressed in going out of our way to be selfless towards other people in the way that God was selfless towards us. When we understand that, God's promise to Abraham was, I will bless you and your family and your nation, but through you, I will bless all of these others. If we understand, after having received love so freely, that we can become a conduit of that love to other people, that's kindness. That's kindness. And so we see Jesus being kind to people. We see Jesus seeing people where they were. We see Jesus treating people well. We see Jesus being selfless towards people. That means the people who had hurt His feelings, the people who would never be able to give Jesus anything, the people who were going about their business and He could help. He helped. And so when He said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, many of them believed Him because He was the full expression of that. So it's not necessarily about being nice and having an ulterior motive. I'm giving this so that people see that I'm a giver. I'm helping people so that people will think of me as a helper. And when we get something out of that, if nothing else, our own ego is lifted up. I don't think that's what He's talking about. I think He is really saying, go above and beyond yourself to be selfless, and in that way, there's something about it. So, what you see is people who are in a store, people who are out and about, maybe even people who are in their lives at a family reunion or at home when they've invited people into their house. Instead of constantly being people who are thinking about ourselves, me. Once we've received the love of God and we feel good about ourselves, our needs are met for love. We don't feel like we need to impress people. When we're in the presence of God, and worship can do this for us, when we're loving on God and we feel God loving on us, we're less likely to be that person who wants attention. We're less likely that person who needs a compliment. Less likely to be that person who says, hey, everybody, look at me, I got this going on. Kids are that way naturally all the time. We see that, right? But as adults, as we get past that a little bit, we can become the conduit. And again, that's the fruit of the Spirit working on our heart to make sure that we feel loved. We feel like our needs are met. We feel like we've been heard and listened to, and so we don't need to beat people over the head with our dilemma. God met us in our dilemma, and He conquered that, and so we're beyond that. then we can look around and see people in their dilemma. We become not the person who Christ died for, although we still are. We become the person who Christ died for and met our needs and saved us so that we're going to be in heaven, and then we become the biggest advocate for God. We become the person who, having seen a product and loved it, decided to go on there and comment, oh, this is the best thing ever. So we want other people. We're an ambassador. There are people now hiring ambassadors or talking about ambassadors for a certain product or service, that you liked it so much you want to tell everybody so much you liked it. Now listen, if you are running a brand, let's say you're running a business, you have a product for sale, and you walk out and you see these people who are influencing others, these people who are ambassadors, and you say, hey, listen, here's a free product. I want you to see it. And then they love it. And these people are doing more for that company because they don't mind saying, hey, listen, I'm going to tell everybody how great this is, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. Christ calls us his ambassadors. We're therefore ambassadors, having received that we might give. And so the fruit of somebody who has the Spirit working in them, who is mature, is that we then become the people who lead other people to the same grace we've received. What does that look like? So what does it look like, an act of kindness? I'm not talking about, there's everybody, practice random acts of kindness. I say practice intentional acts of kindness. To find things to do in your life whereby people receive something from you. And again, you can say, well, what is it that I have that other people don't? It may be time to write notes, to write a letter of encouragement, to go to the store and get some Hallmark cards. They like to be Hallmark cards, but you understand what I mean by Hallmark card. And say, I was thinking of you, and just write a note. You don't have to have a whole lot for that, right? You can get thank you cards from us, nothing. And you can get thinking of you cards, cheaply. And so it doesn't have to be a money thing. We talk about money a lot because it's easy to say an example of money, but when so many people want to gather all they can, and then there's this group over here giving money away, that's an easy way of saying be generous in that way. What about just, when you see somebody at the grocery store, again, what is it that you can do for somebody? Can you pick up groceries for somebody? Can you leave a note or treat for somebody? Can you, try to figure out ways to lift people up. Try to figure out ways to help people out of the situation that they don't have resources for. And so whatever your resources might be, time, taking people to the doctor, things like that, not for your own good, but for theirs. What you'll see is it's better to give than receive, and so we get something back from that, but that's not why we're doing it. So what is it? I wonder, and I run out of ideas. The other day I was thinking about this idea, and maybe you've had it happen to you or not, but you're in the driveway and you see somebody behind you, drive through at a restaurant, in a restaurant, fast food place or whatever, and you see somebody behind you and you think, I just want to encourage them. Let them know that somebody appreciates them for them, and so you just walk up and say, hey, I'm gonna buy mine. I want to buy the one behind me too. That person's not likely to talk about how great you are because they don't know who you are. You're not likely to get something. It's just a random act of kindness, something that could be an act for somebody else. It could be, you see somebody in a particular situation and you walk up to them and you say, hey, listen, just praying for people today. Is there anything in particular I could pray for you for? And you don't have to make it any further than that. Sometimes people don't. But a lot of times, and I think this is true too, we think about kindness, we think about things that we could do for strangers. And it's less risky because we don't know that person. What about people in our own lives? What about calling somebody on the phone and say, listen, I was praying for you today. And I just wondered if there was anything in particular that you have on your heart or mind that you would share with me that I could pray with you for. And you're not doing it for yourself so they think you're a mighty prayer or anything like that. It's hard. It's a tricky line. But just an act of kindness. Just an act of kindness. And again, kindness is not a feeling. I feel kind to you. No, it's not a feeling. It's an act that showcases our selflessness as opposed to our old selfishness that shows the work of God in our life and expresses that God, for whoever's receiving this, could also experience that too. I tell you what, these things will catch a lot of people off guard. And some of the people that catch most off guard are people who are selfish. Because they look around and they say, why in the world would they ever do something for me? I would have never done something for them. That's the kind of thing that gets people to stop and think. So I want to read again just the last passage here, and then next week I think we'll head on to another one, and we're skipping around a little. We may not do it in order, and we may not, whatever. Some of them are connected. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, not love in an emotion like we talked about, but love in action towards other people. Joy, we talked about that. Peace, patience, we skipped a little bit. Kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who belong to Christ Jesus, right? This is the evidence of the Spirit, have crucified the flesh with its old passions and desires. We're not like Adam and Eve anymore, who would just do something selfishly for our own self. That's sin. But we're showcasing the maturity of having been redeemed by Jesus, having redeemed hearts that are active for Him and that are looking around in this world for other people that we can help. Hope that you're doing well, and I hope that you're enjoying the series on the fruit of the Spirit. We look forward to seeing you next week one more time, and God bless you.